I want to tell you a story today about a CEO I sat with recently. She told me that she felt like her business was running her instead of the other way around. December had arrived. She said she felt like she had lived the entire year reacting, firefighting, and pivoting so much that she couldn't even remember what last January looked like. She used to wake up before the sunrise. She would dread the sound of her own phone. Like, her days, she felt belonged to everybody except her. She was answering crises that she didn't create, but yet she became the extinguisher of every fire. Her breaking point came on a Wednesday when she realized that she'd spent half the morning solving a crisis that should have been somebody else's problem. And she looked at the clock and something inside of her sank. It arrived as almost a whisper. She finally understood that she had not been leading her life or her company. Basically the whole year. She had been letting both her life and her company drag her along behind them, kind of like when you hear the saying, the tail wagging the dog. Everything was noise and she could barely hear herself think. The more she examined her day, she realized how she had drifted into this defensive posture. Her calendar was a battlefield and her goals were pushed aside. She stayed busy, but she didn't make progress. At the end of every day, the end of every week, and the end of every month, she found that she had a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from having motion without momentum. She tried to outrun it. More hours, more caffeine, more grinding. Yet the faster that she ran, the faster it outran her. The fires grew, but not because the company was falling apart, but because she had trained everybody to treat her as the fire extinguisher. She became the hero of every moment and the prisoner in her own hours. Every day ended the same way. She had a vague sense of accomplishment, a vague sense of success. Things were going well, I guess. But she felt empty. She finally, in December, looked at the strategic plan she had written last January, a year ago. And she recognized her own ideas as though someone else had written them. She realized the path she wanted to be on vanished. She simply stopped walking on that path. The plan didn't need to be rewritten. It just needed to be resurrected. And so the next morning, she created a filter. And every task, every question, every demand had to pass through this filter. And it had two gates. It came from something she heard Kevin O'Leary say. Is it signal or is it noise? Did it move her toward her goal or drag her back into the fire? And if it was going to drag her backwards, she refused to touch it. It fell simply on the wrong side of the line. Within a week, she managed to put out the fires and everything started feeling better, and her momentum started to return. Leadership again became deliberate, not frantic. She discovered that the fastest way forward was not to run harder, but to choose where to step. No one builds a powerful life by chasing the sparks when their future depends on following the signals. And here's the lesson to take away from that. Fires disappear when you stop mistaking sparks for strategy. I believe that a new year does not change you unless you change your strategy. I believe that vision is only power when it's converted into systems and decisions. I believe that most people are one well-designed plan away from having their most defining year. And I believe that you can live a year on purpose instead of on accident. So how can we strategically design a 2026 before it arrives that can get you to your purpose instead of your accident? I'll challenge you with 5 lessons. The first one, design your year backwards. Let's start with next year's December 31st. December 31st, 2026. Who do you want to be on that date? What do you want your identity to be? What do you want your revenue to be? Your relationships, your health, your personal brand, your corporate brand. For that matter, what do you want to look like? What do you want your clothes to be? Your rituals, your daily habits. Be specific in how you envision that future self on December 31st of 2026. And then reverse engineer that. Now that you know what you want to be a year from now, how are we going to get there? Reverse engineer what we've got to do to make those things a reality. Lesson number 2, anchor your year with 3 big rocks. You know, there's so many of these goal-setting programs that have you list out, the 7 categories and 3 goals in every category. And you end up with 21 goals, and that just looks like chaos. There's no way that you can focus on 21 different things over the course of the year and accomplish really anything. You need to choose just 3 things and hyper-focus with vigilance. As Kevin O'Leary said, as our CEO in the story I told you said, focus on those as your signals and everything else is the noise. Your signals can be your 3 strategic priorities for the year. Maybe those are your identity change. Maybe those are your income level. Maybe it's fixing your infrastructure strategically. They can also be signals for your quarterly goals, your weekly goals, your daily goals. What are your top 3 goals to get you closer to your December 31st, 2026 person every day, every week, every month, every quarter? You have to be intentional and mission critical to stay on task so that you know that you are accomplishing the things that need to be accomplished to get to the big goals and not being distracted by the noise. The signal versus the noise ratio, some people are really good at that hard line. If it doesn't relate to the actual goals in front of them, it doesn't interfere with them. I think that may be a little unrealistic for most of us, though, because you're always going to have things like, how was your day? Did you watch the season finale of The Bachelorette? There's always going to be that interpersonal relationship that you need to have, and that's good for you, and that's good for your company maybe, or your interpersonal relationships with your staff. And that's somewhat noise. It's not necessarily the signal that's getting you closer to your December 31, 2026 goals. I would recommend a ratio of 80% signal, 20% noise. As long as you've got the gates up and no more than 20% noise at any given day, week, month, quarter is getting through, then you are making more progress than you are being set behind. Lesson number 3, build systems, not wishes. Every goal has to have metrics, boundaries, and rhythms. You can't just have fantasy land. You can't just make this stuff up. You can't just hope that it's going to happen. If you don't have a system, you don't have a plan, you don't have metrics, you don't have measurable, deliverable things to tell you if you're making progress, then you're living in a fantasy, not actually making efforts to your achievement. I think of it like oranges and Skittles. A friend of mine used that comparison one time. Look at your oranges. Those are your big goals, and the Skittles are the noise. And so you have to have the metrics to judge, have we accomplished 6 oranges this week. Today, I'm going to accomplish these 3 oranges today and set out to do them first before any of the Skittles kind of come along and interfere. Lesson number 4, assign resources and assign them early. Everything about strategic achievement is allocation. You allocate your calendar, you allocate your money, you allocate your time, you allocate your attention. If you don't pre-assign it, then you're not going to devote the resources to it. The noise is going to interfere and the noise is going to get in the way. I think of this like how I was taught to manage money back before money was electronic and plastic. And that was the envelope rule. In other words, you converted all of your money to cash at the beginning of the month, and then you allocated or budgeted the money to envelopes. Maybe one envelope was gas money, and one envelope was grocery money, and one envelope was beer budget. And when the money wasn't in the envelope anymore, you quit spending on that envelope. Nowadays, with electronic money and plastic money, we have to do that envelope system in a different way. But the point remains the same. If you don't assign metrics to your resources, then they will get away from you. If you love to travel and you have goals of traveling, you have to assign resources to your travel so that they are available for you. The worser things is for you to go into debt and then end up paying credit card interest on doing these fun things that you want to do with your life. If you have a desire to change your career or change a hobby or learn a new skill like AI, you have to allocate your resources. You have to allocate your time to actually do that so that you can accomplish it. Allocate that hour every morning to learning a new AI skill so that when AI becomes the norm, not the new trinket that we're all seeing, then you're prepared for the changes that are going to come. And lesson number 5, declare your non-negotiables. There are things this year that you need to declare as a non-negotiable. Maybe it's a positive non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable that I am going to accomplish this thing. Or maybe it's a negative non-negotiable, a non-negotiable that I am not going to take these type of clients. Maybe your goal is to take a month off in the summer to spend with your family, and that is a non-negotiable for you. And so those are the oranges. Those are those big things that need to come first so that everything else plans around it. Declare those non-negotiables up front. You're planning those at your December 31st, 2026 self. You are saying like, I took a month off this year and spent it in Italy with my family. Or I learned all about Midjourney or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever AI comes along so that you are prepared for changes that are going to come along in our society and in our workforce. Whatever those big things are that you want to set in your path for 2026, you have to plan that and declare them as non-negotiable. You will accomplish those things no matter what. You are going to get up every day and work on accomplishing those non-negotiables. You have to make a promise to yourself to do those things that you declare are non-negotiables. Then you have to keep it, because the promises that you make to yourself, those are the things that build your resilience. They build your confidence. They build your self-respect. And even if it's just a small promise that you make to yourself, like I'm going to get up at 5:30 every morning this week, put on my shoes, and exit the door to go for a walk. Day 1, you may only walk a block. That's okay. If walking is your goal for 2026, walking a block accomplishes a small piece of that. It builds momentum. It builds confidence. You know you can walk the block. You've done it before. And the next day, you walk a block and a little bit farther. And that's how you can build your self-respect, your confidence. You fulfill those promises to yourself so that those non-negotiables, they get accomplished. And they get accomplished early, often. And by the end of the year, you know you have met your goals. You also increase your momentum. You increase your happiness, frankly, because you're proud of yourself. And you increase your well-being because you're not stressed out. You aren't suffering from what Zig Ziglar used to call stinking thinking. You're not down on yourself. You're not punishing yourself for failing to do things that you wanted to do. And you're actually making progress toward your December 31st, 2026 self. But breaking those promises gives you a sense of powerlessness. It affects your self-esteem. You just have to start small and accomplish something small today that gets you that much closer. Beat yourself. You don't have to beat anybody else. All you have to do is be better the next day than you were the previous day. Next year is not a mystery. It's a blueprint. It's a strategy. You can walk into 2026 with the confidence that you will be the person on December 31st, 2026 that you set out to be. Fires disappear when you stop mistaking the sparks for strategy. What is your strategy to become your version of the best you on December 31st of 2026? Let's implement that strategy today.